Come to me, Julianos, for without you my wit is weak to sort the wheat from the chaff, and my eyes should neither know the true from the false, nor sense from folly, nor justice from prejudice and interest. Magic is all-encompassing, yet it is also a complete mystery to mortals. It flows from Aetherius, the realm of the gods, through the sun and the stars, and it bleeds into Mundus in the form of light. Magic comprises every sentient spirit. Its energy powers all living things, and frankly, without magic, mortals in their realm would not even exist. Yet somehow, magic has become the ultimate taboo. Studying it is now done almost exclusively in secret, and while mages were once revered, they are now secluded hermits. If a hold guard so much as sniffs a whiff of magicka on you, they'll immediately say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, watch the magic." And that sentiment pretty much sums up the collective perception of magic in the Fourth Era. Believe it or not, some of the gods have flourished since magic fell out of fashion. Take Stendar or Archaea as examples. Their orders of holy warriors and vigilants are praised for stomping out evil sorceries and unnatural abominations wherever they pop up. The Divines are the only immortal entities seemingly unaffected by the mortal wish to avoid the arcane. Well, almost all of the Divines. There is one unlucky Aedra who has begun to fade into obscurity since the practice of magic was disparaged by the masses, and his name is Julianos. Without him, the mortal realm is bound to stagnate, as his sphere is about more than just tossing fireballs. Julianos is the one who encourages mortals to be educated, to learn from history, to philosophize and look to the heavens for answers. He is the key to mortal achievement, greatness, and enlightenment. Yet with such a profound sphere, there is always room for some mortals, or even other gods, to abuse it. And while he is rarely accredited for all the good done with his sphere, he is assuredly blamed for all the bad. He may be on the path to insignificance, but I'll do my best to defend this divine, as without him mortality will truly be lost, and my work as a daedrologist would be nothing without him. Hey guys, it's Drew here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. In this video we're going to delve into the lore of Julianos and try to emphasise why he's so important to mortals. In my Daedrology series I spoke about Hermaeus Mora and his labyrinth of hidden knowledge. I made the case that the secrets within his endless library could turn mortals into gods. But this Daedra Lord isn't particularly interested in the good of mortals. He's a Daedric prince, he has his own cryptic motives. Julianos though, he wills mortals to seek wisdom in history, law, literature, philosophy, and most importantly contradiction. He wants us to question everything and take nothing as gospel. He deserves to be worshipped. Before I go on, let's take a moment to get to know this divine. That'd probably be important if I'm going to preach about why we shouldn't forget him. In the 10 commands of the 9 divines, Julianos says, "Know the truth, observe the law, when in doubt seek wisdom from the wise." To the Nords he is named Junal. In their religion he represented hermetic orders, runes, as well as the creation of language and mathematics. Notice how I said that in the past tense? That's because Junal is no longer venerated by the Northerners. According to varieties of faith in the Empire, he fell out of favour in the Nordic pantheon, and he has since been adopted into the Cyrodiilic divines. To the Imperials he was called Julianos, and his sphere governs the fields of literature, law, history and contradiction. Due to the fact that magic is intertwined with all facets of life, down to the very foundations of Mundus, his sphere is also associated with magic. To us, faith and magic may seem somewhat at odds with science and logic, but they have a very different relationship in the Elder Scrolls universe. While I am portraying Julianos as the forgotten god, this was not always the case. If we go back to the First or Second Era, there are plenty of examples of Julianos being one of the most venerated gods on Tamriel. If you watched my recent video on the Aelids, for example, you'll know they were enamoured of magic. They built their civilization around magic, and the starlight which transported it from Aetherius to Mundus. The ruins of their empire show little evidence for what gods they worshipped, but we can speculate on which gods were paramount in their pantheon. Molag Bal and Mehrunes Dagon were some of the less savoury examples, but they also venerated the divines, and judging by their affinity for magic, Julianos was likely one of the most beloved. A more concrete example would be the cult of the Ancestor Moth. This monastic order was founded by Tiber Septim and was given the crucial and exclusive responsibility of reading from the sacred Elder Scrolls. No man nor mer outside of the cult is permitted to read from them, Varieties of faith in the Empire states that this order is dedicated to Julianos. It seems as though worship for Julianos was rife until late in the Third Era. There are clear examples of his veneration in Daggerfall during the 405th year of the Third Era. The Bretons are known for having temples devoted to Julianos and his sphere. These temples are called schools, and they focus on education, and they are among the most knowledgeable research institutions in Tamriel, probably second only to the Mages Guild. It would be interesting to know if they are still prevalent in the Fourth Era, as the dissolution of the Mages Guild would compound the importance of these institutions. But we'll get into the Mages Guild soon enough. The schools of Julianos feature the following description. The School of Julianos is no mere temple, dedicated to mindless obeisance to a distant and hazy god figure. Julianos is a god to be sure, but foremost he is a symbol of logic, learning, philosophy and wisdom. We espouse no moral philosophy other than the goodness of knowledge. As the great Sigik once said, the power of ignorance can truly shatter mithril like glass. That is our enemy. Scholarship is a long and difficult journey, and Julianos does not tolerate those who wish to shorten it. However, he does bless those who generously donate to his school, with a temporary increase in their magical skills. While we advocate literacy and education for all Tamrielans, our policy for those who wish to join the school itself is very stringent. We have little time to waste training the slow and the lazy. This description aptly summarises just how essential Julianos worship is. Unfortunately though, one fateful event at the climax of the Third Era would see logic and wisdom give way to hysteria. I'm of course referring to the Oblivion Crisis. Mehrunes Dagon unleashed his hellish legions upon Tamriel by opening portals known as Oblivion Gates, linking his Deadlands to Nirn, infiltrating the continent from within. His goal was to conquer the realm, and in order to achieve it, he caused suffering on a grand scale. By relighting the dragon fires, Martin Septim, the last of the Septim dynasty, was able to transform into the avatar of Akatosh and defeat Dagon in single combat. In the aftermath, political and cultural wounds festered. The Empire was without a leader, and disdain for magic grew exponentially. To the common man or mer, you can imagine why they blamed magic. To them, life was working the fields, eating and sleeping, a simple existence. They can't really comprehend how ambiguous magic is. They don't stop to think that the fertile land from which their crops cultivate is a result of magic. Nor do they consider their consciousness a result of magic. They see portals and demons and hellfire, and they cry magic. Even though it was magic in turn that ended the invasion and cauterized the continent's wounds. This sentiment, however oversimplified it was, inevitably became the common consensus, and the Mages Guild, the organisation at the forefront of discovery and education, was dissolved to appease the people. The cultural climate across Tamriel was only exacerbated when Vivec disappeared, and Sheogorath's meteor collided with Vivec City. Red Mountain erupted, transforming Vardenfell into an ashen wasteland, and making the surrounding land almost uninhabitable. The fallout was felt long after, and the eruption was blamed for the great collapse of Winterhold. Before the collapse, skepticism aimed at magic was already abundant. The Nords once called their wizards clever men, and they were heroes. The Way of the Voice was their hereditary arcane gift, once revered, but now magic only brought anger and discord. In the 122nd year of the Fourth Era, 117 years after Red Mountain erupted, the city of Winterhold was bombarded by the elements. Waves battered the cliffs, storms formed and the tempests seemed to attack the city as if provoked to do so. The city eroded at an alarming pace and was engulfed by the Sea of Ghosts. Many scholars and mages within the College of Winterhold speculated that this was a delayed effect of the Red Year, affecting the ecosystem of Tamriel's northeast. But when the natural disaster ended and the common folk emerged from the rubble, there stood the College of Winterhold, completely unharmed, perched atop an unnatural rock formation. It is logical to assume that the college was warded, but if you were a resident of Winterhold, would that explanation sate you? They didn't even attempt to ward the city if that was the case, and would the eruption cause such a violent aftershock over a century later? The College of Winterhold was blamed for the collapse, likely the result of some dangerous experiment. At this point, magic was practically vilified, and you could argue rightly so, but the perception of magic as some form of evil could have devastating effects on mortals, even if they don't manifest in such obvious tangible ways like the collapse of Winterhold, or the Oblivion Crisis or the Red Year. Granted, for the average person living a humble life, magic isn't significant. They just want to live in safety, and thus Julianos and worship for him will inevitably dwindle. But the problem is, can you rightly blame Julianos and magic for all the great evils of history, without giving Julianos and magic credit for all the wondrous goods of history as well? The hysteria surrounding magic is often enough for mortals to dismiss Julianos without actually taking into consideration the other aspects of his sphere. That much is demonstrated through the Mages Guild. While magic is fundamental to the guild, their contributions to scholarly pursuits, discovery and wisdom are invaluable, yet in the interest of stopping magic use, the baby is thrown out with the bathwater. So this is where my concern lies. If Tamriel continues on this trajectory, Julianos worship could fade out completely. The Nords hate magic, and Junar is gone from their pantheon. And the Imperials are on the same pathway. These are two cultures with immense influence. Once upon a time, the Nords used the Way of the Voice to prosper after their humble beginnings arriving from Atmora. The ancient Aelids had begun to tap the power of starlight, but were wiped out before they could realise their immense potential. The Dwemer had advanced so far thanks to their intellect and their tonal architecture. The Mages Guild served as a hub for research, and the Battle Spire was a realm used to train mighty battle mages. There are countless examples of how much early mortals had, or could have achieved with magic. Yet all of those examples are in the past now. Scott made an argument in an old video that Skyrim was post-apocalyptic. If that interests you, I recommend watching the full video. But the truth of that claim is clear across the provinces of Tamriel, where ruins can be found scattered across the landscape. Carved walls in Nordic crypts display Junar the owl. Dwemer ruins are locked behind tonal mechanisms. Aelid citadels feature wells which still, after all these years, emanate with magical auras. So much potential, so much greatness, all of it left to rust and crumble with time. Magic made these cultures great, and greatness might become a thing of the past if Julianos is forgotten. And there you have it, guys, why Julianos should always be venerated, even during times of woe. Next time you're treading the roads of Cyrodiil or Skyrim, kneel at one of his way shrines and speak a prayer. May he bestow you with wisdom and clarity of mind. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I've been Drew, and I'll see you next time.